Hi guys, welcome back to the next part of the restoration. So we have cleaned it right the way down to bare metal. Quite a few little marks, dinks and donks on the front here that we're going to need to tidy up. You can see particularly here there's a weird texture going on the front. It dips in a bit as well, so that will need flattening out. This needs polishing up, that's a brass plate, nice and easy to sort that out. The top has come up absolutely beautifully in relation to the condition of the rails that the various components run on. So first thing I need to do right now is clean this down, because yesterday, having stripped all the paint off it, and in order to prevent it from flash rusting, I gave it a protective coating of oil. So I need to remove that now with some good old-fashioned brake cleaner. Give it a wipe down, make sure that there's no residual oil on it. I'm then going to mask the top rails and the badge off, and we're going to apply a rust proofing primer to that, an anti-rust primer, just to hold everything together. Then next step will be to use some Isopon body filler just to flatten out these front faces. I'm not going to be too concerned about the back, but I'd like the front to be absolutely flat. So I'm going to strip it down. Obviously the bed of the lathe being made of cast iron, and the two legs being made, I think, of aluminium. I can spray all of those separately. I'm going to strip that down now, put a sheet underneath it so I can spray things here. You'll see the garage doors open, plenty of fresh air coming in, because particularly the brake clean is not particularly good to breathe in a large quantity of it. But get busy with this, clean up, final prep, and then priming. Okay, so first step then. This is very heavy. Put some gloves on when dealing with the actual units, but temporarily I put this back together just to make sure that I've got the legs on the right side. Now, important to note that the legs, whilst they're the same overall shape, are not necessarily the same dimension. On this one, the one on the right has definitely been trimmed down on one corner to deal with some wobble. Because I put them back on the wrong way, just as part of temporary fixing, and there was a marked difference. It's very, very unstable. So I'll take these bolts and washers and put them in a safe place, and by a safe place I mean an old Travel Sweets tin. That just needs cleaning down with brake cleaner and priming inside and out. Left hand one, likewise, and the base. So clear a bit of space here and get on with cleaning this up. Okay, so that's an old dust sheet down. I am going to start off by cleaning and giving a coat of the anti-rust stuff to the underside of the bed. When you're doing this, be very careful to ensure that you have adequate ventilation. These chemicals are not nice to breathe in an enclosed space. Now, just to push this around, I'm going to use an old decorating brush. You've seen me use this one before, actually. This is the same one that I use on the car when I was doing the restoration back to original factory colour. What I'm doing here basically is just getting rid of all of the grease and anything else that might stop the anti-rust primer from sticking. Cleaning up nicely. flip that over and let it drain for a few minutes. Whilst that's draining underneath, I'm just going to do the top sides. Blue roll for that. Same on the inside with the brush. And the other side. Right, so when these ones have completely dried out, first order of business is to get a good solid layer of anti-rust primer in a normal grey onto the inside of all of these castings. So they're all now nicely cleaned and de-rusted. Just giving one last blast for good measure. So I want this thing to have another, well, we have now 76 years of active service ahead of it, if not longer. So we're going to do a proper job of this as if it was a commission going out the door. Yes, it's an old lathe that was picked up cheaply, but this is going to be an absolutely beautiful tool. And as I've mentioned, I do intend to actually use it, so we might as well do it right. Give it the best possible chance of this being used for many, many years to come. So, whilst that's all evaporating, I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea. And next step is the primer itself. As with all of these things with the rattle can, it's very important to shake it until it mixes. And as this is a new can, you shake it until it starts rattling properly. Anything before that doesn't count. The ball's mixing together the various elements of the paint, and if you don't do this properly, then you're going to get dodgy finishes. So at least 2 or 3 minutes after it's started rattling. If it doesn't easily start rattling, just turn the can upside down. That inversion does an awful lot to mix the stuff up as well. Swirling it like that doesn't do anything. You need to be getting that ball bearing bouncing from one end to the other to really stir it up. I'm just going to quickly tape over the label here, the badge roll, just in case there's any overspray, but we're just going for the ends. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray downwards, letting the droplets settle on the bottom. Then I'm going to flip the whole thing over and do the other side as well, rather than try and spray uphill. We're going to go with super light coats, just a dusting really, and build it up gradually. no rush, got all day to deal with this. In between coats, turn the thing upside down, the aerosol upside down, and give it a squirt until the nozzle runs clear. That'll stop it blocking up. So now we leave that for a few minutes, give it another blast, and then I'm going to flip, as I say, the whole thing upside down and do the other face. Okay, last dust coat here for the bottom. That's now 3 coats on this side. I'm going to turn it upside down, give it the same on the other side. Good thick layer of primer. I'm not going to worry about a top coat underneath. That should be more than adequate. Okay, let's flip her over. So about 15 minutes have gone by now, and that's absolutely bone dry, so I'm going to pick this up, turn it over, and repeat on the other side. As you can see here, these bits are still pretty much unsprayed. Doesn't matter outside, that's going to be cleaned down again, and that'll get sprayed itself very shortly. So finishing off now, what remains, as you can see here, this hasn't had any spray at all, so I'm going to spray roughly from halfway to the very bottom. So 3 coats on the top, very light dusting on the bottom, 3 coats on the bottom now. Last coat on the underside here. Done. So now I can move that back, being careful not to mess up any of the front. Leave that to dry, and we can proceed with the feet. Now if there's any overspray from this, of course it's going to land on that, so that's not going to hurt. But again, not looking to do the outsides though, it doesn't matter if there's a bit of overspray. The whole thing's been cleaned down inside and out with brake cleaner. It's been stripped back, filled and faired, it's all good. This one on the original, there's still a bit of the original filler in the striations in the moulding where it's been cleaned up. You can see particularly on the front face here, but that is absolutely smooth to the touch, so it should, with the primer, appear nice and smooth. Now this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go at it from this angle, turning round through and getting as much of the front face as I can. So turn around that way, I get a longer sweep on the back edge there. And with these I can then turn them straight round and do the other side as well. Intention being at least a couple of coats on this one. Now this being made of aluminium, it's never going to rust, but might as well give it a protective surface anyway for completeness. Oh, one other thing I should mention, there's 2 holes on the top to bolt this onto the bottom of the bed of the lathe. This one at the bottom is actually to attach it onto the bench, and I've already taken the measurement for that bolt. I'm going to have to fabricate some of those, but to actually clamp it down onto the bench afterwards, I just needed to know what that was before having to wrestle with it with a coat of new paint. So that's already done. That's one side, turning them round. Remember to always clear the nozzle. These are nicely coated. I will just give it one more mist coat all the way around, but for now they're pretty tidy. So I'll let those dry, finish them off, and then we're ready to flip it over, mask it up to protect the top rails, and coat the outside. I have to say, I think I'm probably going to need another tin of primer, but this project is absolutely worth 2 tins. They're about £6.50, £7 a tin, something like that, so no point scrimping on anti-rust primer. Oh, and just in case you were wondering, these are all Whitworth threads, and this one for the base plate is a 3/8 of an inch, which of course means 16 teeth per inch thread. So there you go. Nice fit. It works for me because, as I say, I've got a full set of Whitworth taps and dies. Okay, time for the second spray on the inside. Same deal as before. I'm just blasting the nozzle clearing spray across the front of these. It's not really a problem because I'm going to have to flip them over and do the outsides in a second anyway. So because this top surface is going to be on the fabric or on another hard surface when I'm spraying those down, I'm going to leave this for at least an hour. You leave 15 minutes between coats, but at least an hour will ensure that that's good and hard and it's not going to stick onto the fabric. So I will pause this for now and catch you shortly. In the meantime, whilst that's drying, I'm just going to pop out and get another can of anti-rust primer, because I'm definitely going to use that. That's about half gone, and I want to put at least 3 full coats on the outside as well. Alright, back shortly. Okay, a couple of hours later now. This is nice and dry. Before I go handling these, let's get some fresh gloves on. Got the door open again, so you'll have to forgive a bit of road noise. Okay, so the inside is now nicely primed on all these pieces. Good and hard. So that is fine. We're ready to spray the top now. There's one thing I want to do before I start spraying the top, and that is I want to polish up and then mask off the brass badge on the other side. So just do that. The other thing I need to do, as there's still quite a lot of oil and grease on the top of this piece, is I need to give this a good old blast of brake cleaner, same as we did before. So another chemically job. Let's peel this off here. As I say, this is definitely brass, so we got Old faithful Brasso. I don't need to go crazy with this, but basically it saves me applying chemicals onto fresh paint, and as you can see here I might overlap the edges a touch. I'll give it a good clean now, and not only will it save me having to wreck the fresh paint later on, it'll also make the masking tape stick better. Let's get a bit of friction going. That'll help get the dirt off. There's about 70 years of grime. Brasso is available as two forms. One is lint, the other is as a polish that you just put on a rag. In this case I'm just using the lint one. Tons of the stuff, nice fresh wood now. What I could do, I suppose, is disconnect this from the inside and then re-rivet it. And I don't have any brass rivets, but easier to keep it in situ. Again, still absolutely caked with dirt. You can see the mess it's made of the lint. Use a fresh piece each time. It's kind of like tea cut in this form, like a kind of carborundum paste, and we just apply that. Level blast. Just leave that on for a second. Slightly coarse rag now, a bit rougher, a bit of old towel. That'll do. Okay, so we can now mask that off. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to overlay this past the edge of brass and then use a Stanley knife to trim down along the sides of the badge itself, because I want the primer to actually go up the sides of the badge. I definitely don't want to have to take it off, so I want the primer to go all the way up the sides to ensure that the surface is protected. So using a Stanley knife here and using the edge of that plate as a ruler. Okay, so that's nicely protected. Now this is why it's so important between steps in this to actually put a protective layer of oil on. You can see here, this is flash rusted already. That's barely a few hours. So what I'm going to do here is, while I've got the brasso out, I'm just going to polish the whole of the top of this off, and I'm going to mask it up. Now I'm going to need to clean this again afterwards anyway, to clean it up post priming, but I'm just going to clean the worst of this rust off here, and it is just flash rust, so very fine surface rust. I'm going to do that, get it masked up, and then we'll get this sprayed as quickly as we possibly can to prevent any more rust from building up. So even just a thin duster of this anti-rust primer will prevent that from happening. It isn't going to take a lot to deal with this flash rust on the surface. In fact, that's it done. Super easy to get rid of, but it will form again in a matter of minutes to hours. So really important to get this done absolutely as soon as possible. Now, once this is all painted up, of course this will be constantly coated in a thin film of oil, not least because when you're cutting on a metalworking lathe, you're constantly drizzling oil on that flicks all over the place. But yeah, therein lies the danger of stripping components like this and then leaving them for any amount of time unprotected. The reason that flash rusted is because when I was cleaning the inside, some of the brake cleaner has stripped the oil off the bottom layer that was protecting it. When it was upside down to the top as we see it now was underneath. That's dribbled through, and straight away moisture in the air has encouraged the material to rust. So yeah, you'll be super careful with this. Have things well organised, so that when you are ready to go, it is no delays. Strip it down, prep, prime, and then the top coat then is less critical. But it's super important to make sure before you put the primer on, all the surfaces are nice and clean. Okay. Just to show you what's going on here, this is what I've just polished up. There's some dirt there. Brake cleaner gets let all of the oxygen in the air get access to the surface. Now we'll just keep a quick eye on this. It's possible that the brake cleaner here is going to take this sticker off, but it probably isn't. So just turn this down, let it air dry, and then we'll be dusting that with primer. There we go, nice and shiny again. Good to go. Okay, so the brake cleaner has dried. I want to keep the whole of this flat section at the back protected, because that is what part of the sliding assembly is ride on. So that rests on that piece at the back, this groove rests on this triangle at the front. Now the rest of it doesn't really need to be untreated, but I am going to leave it clean very deliberately, so that I can keep it very well lubricated, and in order to avoid any paint from flaking off or whatever and getting jammed in the mechanism, causing it to stick. Now I'll trim this off at the edges in a second. I'm deliberately not going to go all the way to the very bottom of this front rail, so that the primer catches it all the way, and the primer and the paint as well catch it all the way to the start of the polished section. So that's lined up now across the bottom. Flip that over the top. And just one last piece there to pull it off this end. One last piece to join those two pairs of strips down the middle. Lovely. So we're good to go. It is rust treated. It's been sprayed down. A little bit rough here, particularly here, lots of casting marks, and where it's been ground back to get rid of the scale from the casting process. I'm going to see how this looks. I think I'll probably need a bit of body filler here, and probably a little bit here, just to tidy that up. But you know, for now, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Just going to get on and get it sealed in so that we can then top coat it and get some grease back on the top, which by that point will have definitely flash rusted again, but as you saw a minute ago, we can easily bring that back just with a bit of brasso. Okay, here we go. Now these are mist coats. It's not going to cover the whole thing so that it looks grey in the first pass. It's going to look blotchy. Don't be tempted to spray any more on. And what I can see here straight away is that there's a piece of fluff that looks like it's been blown up from the cloth. Might happen. Press this down, that seems to be holding okay. Right, so leave that for 15 minutes or so, and then come back with the next layer. Actually, let's not wait, let's multitask here. I'm going to do these other bits in the background because I can. And again, we can pick these up underneath the flanges, so I'm going to turn these and give them a good blast all round. Windy old day today. Raining really hard outside too. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe you can see that one. Let's just lower it down a bit this time. Okay, so that's the front primed. I'm looking at it here. I don't know how well it comes across. There is actually some pitting just here, so I am going to fill that. I'll use some isopon for that. I'll do that in the next video. For now, I'm just going to let these dry, and then I'm going to flip it round and do the reverse face. Particularly do the ends as well. Okay, so being careful not to damage the primer. I'm going to be picking it up from the back here. Try and get my finger underneath it. The back has received a light dusting already from the legs. Spray back. It's just a continuous block here, no masking required really, just along that top face. So I'm just going to make sure that the piece of tape covering that isn't actually going to stop us from getting all the way to that top edge. It's slapdash actually. I'm going to take that one off and put it on again. So I want to get a nice crisp edge here. Okay. As before, mist coat. Really just giving it a key in this first layer. It doesn't matter about covering it so that it looks like a continuous, consistent grey. We'll let that dry, and then these bits here, for instance, we'll just fill in on the next layer, but the whole thing's covered with a small layer that's going to allow the next layer to stick better. No runs, no drips. Keep the layers thin, give them time to dry between applications, and you really can't go too far wrong with this stuff. There is a few marks here, might fill those at the same time. No harm in doing it. It's just a case of getting a plastic scraper, scraping over the surface with a thin bead of filler. We shall do that in a bit, and then dust it back with a Scotch Brite pad or a little foam sanding block once it's all dried. Super easy to do. So yeah, do that in the next video. Filling and fairing. All of these techniques are good for bodywork, by the way. That's why I've left them in the category of cars and autos. Pretty much everything I'm doing on this could be applied to restoring a vehicle. So leave that for a few minutes now, and the next layer will tie it all together and make it nice and grey consistently. One more for good measure on top, and then I'm going to leave that overnight to properly cure. Before coming back at it tomorrow with filler and take a view on how much is required then. Okay, this is a nice consistent colour. Again, don't get carried away. Just a thin layer we're putting on here. Remember to clean the nozzle. One more layer on the back, and that can's just about done as well, so it's taken exactly one can of the anti-rust primer to deal with all of the inside and out of this unit. Really gone quite a long way. So I'm going to leave that now for another 15 minutes, let that dry, come back to it, give it another blast, and then I'm going to take the tape off the top and very, very carefully apply a film of oil onto that. just to protect it overnight, and I'll retape it tomorrow for further work. Okay, so home straight. Last one here. Just tidy up round the ends. That can's done. Excellent. Okay, so that'll do us for today. So that's the process for cleaning down, masking up, polishing the brass, and priming inside and out. Ultimately, cleanliness is the key. Get rid of any rust, get rid of any oil, and use an appropriate primer to both protect the metal and also provide a really solid basis on which to put the next layers. So that'll do us for today. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I will see you next time. Take it easy.